So good evening, everyone. As a reminder, we are recording the session. So if you are not comfortable with your name or image appearing, please mute yourself or block your image and so on and so forth. Okay, we are on the Spirits book. We are on question 934.
934, yes.
Yes, it's loss of loved ones. Okay, so this is chapter 1 of book 4. Earthly Joys and Sorrows is the title of this chapter, and we did relative happiness and unhappiness for the past couple of weeks, and now we are going to start with loss of loved ones. Okay. Paco, you are going to read for us?
Yes. Loss of loved ones. Is the love of those who are dear to us a legitimate source of sorrow, as this loss is both irreparable and independent of our will? This cause of sorrow, for which neither the rich nor the poor are saved, is either a trial or atonement. However, you have the consolation of communicating with them through the means you already possess, while awaiting other means that will be more direct and more open to your senses.
Okay, so we all know that loss of loved ones is one of the most challenging difficulties that we face in our lives, physical lives, and especially when they are unexpected or when they are we lose someone very close to us, someone that we share our home or we share a special affection. But as eternal spirits, what Spiritism brings to us is hope and consolation. Understanding our eternal being eternal souls, that we live forever, we understand that this separation is temporary, and we are going to discuss more in the next couple of questions. But we live in a world of trials and atonements. Before anyone asks, is either a trial or atonement? Yes, it is a trial or atonement. We live in a world of trials and atonements. So we are going to have to face the challenges of losing loved ones on our physical life. Now, when you lose a parent that is old and die of natural causes, this is the natural circle of life, right? So we have to be more prepared and more acceptable of these losses. When we lose a child, when we lose someone, a partner that is young, and we are going through these difficult times of the pandemic, and people, we have these carnations caused by the pandemic that may be surprising to the relatives. We have to be aware, and Spiritism gives us the ability to understand and the ability to know that we can communicate with them according to the limits and possibilities of this communication. One thing that is important to remember here, because Kardec is going to, and the spirits are going to talk about the communications, this was the very beginning of Spiritism. Later, we learn much more about the difficulties and challenges of communications from our loved ones, because for them to be able to communicate, they need to be prepared. It needs to be something that both are deserving, in a sense of it will benefit both, because otherwise it can be a source of more distress than really of assistance. So we are going to talk about this. It's I think we have 3 questions here. Communications with those beyond the grave is something that we are just starting to study in the Medium's book. So a lot of the mediumistic questions of the communications, I'll ask you to leave for the second part, and you can ask Elmo about it on the second part, because that's not the focus here. The focus here is how do we face the loss of loved ones, okay? All right, I'm not trying to prevent people from asking questions. I'm just anticipating this discussion that we are going to have on the second part. Correct, Elmo?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Any questions here? Any comments? No? Okay. Everybody's too shy? All right. Go ahead, Paco. Next one. You're on mute, Paco. You're on mute, Paco.
Now, you hear me? Do you hear
Yeah.
me? Okay.
Yeah.
What should we think of the opinion that communication with those beyond the grave is sacrilegious? There can be no desecration where there is respectful thought and sympathy, and when the communication is made with due respect. The proof of this is in the fact that the spirits who love you take pleasure in coming to you. They rejoice that you remember them and in being able to converse with you. There would be a desecration in this communication if it were carried out in a thoughtless or trivial manner. The possibility of communicating with spirits is extremely comforting, since it gives us the means of conversing with our relatives and friends who have left this life before us. By our contact, we draw them nearer to us, and they come to hear us and reply to us. There's no longer any separation between them and us. They aid us with their guidance and assure us of how pleased they are that we remember them. We're happy to learn that they're happy, discover the details of their new existence from them, and obtain the certainty of reuniting with them one day.
Okay, so where does this question come from? The idea of the communication with those beyond the grave being sacrilegious started with Moses when he forbid as they were crossing the desert, he forbid the Jews at that time to communicate with the deads. Why did he do that? Because they were using the communications with the dead for trivial things, for, you know, like they created the gold calf. They were using communications for very basic questions, like the people still do today with the Ouija boards and with the psychics and everything. So in that sense, what Moses was a disciplinarian. He wanted to control a group of people that were crossing the desert for 40 years. They were pretty much barbarians, and that they needed to follow rules. That's why the Jewish religion has so many rules. We know the 12 commandments, and I was told there are like 700 commandments, if I'm not mistaken. And so, you know, but Moses brought to us the disciplinary laws that are important when you are trying to educate and control. If if you go to a first grade class and you allow the kids to do whatever they want, you cannot teach them. It's going to be a mess.
Of course.
So we were pretty much first graders crossing the desert, and we needed a teacher that was disciplinarian. So that's what Moses was. And of course, like all the traditions brought by Moses were carried up to today, and they still have this laws against communicating with the dead. But you know, on the other hand, if they prohibit, it's because they believe that the other side exists. Otherwise, they wouldn't forbid something that does not exist, right? There are some evangelicals or Protestants that believe that all the communication with the dead are communications with the devil. So that's why they also try to prohibit. The explanation by the spirits and by Kardec, again, brings reason to it. If we have a loved one who is on the other side and wants to communicate, and we miss them, and we cannot communicate, and we can communicate, what's wrong with that? You know, if you want to communicate with your relative that live in another country, what's the problem with that? And it's just a different plane of existence. So the communication, there is nothing wrong on the communication as long as it is for the right purposes, not for trivial purposes. The spirits say there will be a desecration if they were carried out in a thoughtless or trivial manner. And why is that? The problem with the communications, trivial communications, is because you don't really know for sure who is on the other side, there is a very big chance of you being deceived if you are doing something trivial. So if you want to ask your guardian angel if you are going to find a partner, for a loving partner, it's very easy for a deceiving spirit to send a communication and make us believe in something that comes from a less evolved spirit. So, as Kardec says, the possibility of communicating is extremely comforting. As long as we understand the limitations, the purpose, and do not get frustrated with the inability of some spirits to communicate. Of course, spirits that are dealing with their own issues in the spiritual world, that are in unhappy places, it's much more difficult for them to communicate and almost impossible sometimes. For those that remember Nosso Lar, André Luiz wanted to communicate, to go after his family. Through the whole book, he was held back by the mentors telling him that it was not the right time. And then finally he found out why when by the end of the book, when he went to visit his family. So communication is possible, it's comforting, but we need to learn the usefulness of it and to understand the purpose of it. Okay? Luis, you raised your hand. You're mute?
Yes. Now I am on mute.
Yes.
There's going to be a question in the end, but I think I'd brief to frame my thought. The codification gave us, I think, a fantastic consolation in the sense that it gave us an assurance, almost mathematical, that all those that we love here while incarnated will continue. On the other hand, I believe we have learned that what it says down there is not really true, meaning that it's not certain that we will reunite with them one day. Not only we do not know that this family here that we have now in this incarnation is part of our long-term family but also we don't know if we are all at the same level of advancement. We might go to different places when we disincarnate. So we don't know. Uh, although we have the consolation that those that we love will continue. And this is mathematical almost. I love that expression. The question here is, how should we incarnate behave on regard to those that are gone? I don't know. I've had different guidances, and I want to hear what you, João, suggest to me. Caldini the other day suggested that we should call those that we love and that are gone to help us with our day-to-day endeavors. I have been present in where I work, and a sister was sort of being almost plagued by her mother that kept being called by their daughters almost every day. They had like a shrine for her, and she could go on. So I really don't know. How should I think about my father? I love my father. I think about him. You knew him, João. And I don't know if I should say hi, if I should call him to come close, or what do you recommend?
All right.
What's your counsel?
So let's divide here. First, let me tell you something. The certainty of reuniting with them one day, it is certainty. It's not guaranteed that it's going to be right after this incarnation. Our loved ones are never lost. So eventually you'll be reunited with them. And the spirits don't say here that you are going to reunite with them when you go back to the spiritual world. They say one day, and one day we're going to be reunited with them. So just to be clear that our loved ones are always, we never lose our loved ones. We will be with them one day. Now, in terms of, it's a very important question, and it's a question that, it brings a lot of doubts for those that are studying Spiritism and starting to learn about Spiritism. How do you address your loved ones that you lost? So what happens is that, let's give the example of your father. We should always communicate with them, sending loving thoughts that could be, you can call prayer, or you can call just thoughts, because they will receive and benefit from our loving thoughts. The problem is when we ask them to help us, because we don't know if they can. And if they cannot, sometimes it's going to cause them anguish. It's going to cause them a sort of frustration for their inability to come and help us. So they will receive these conflicting thoughts from us that they may not even understand correctly what is going on. So they may feel the need to help without the ability of really helping us. But a loving thought, a loving prayer, it's never lost. Even if they cannot benefit immediately, you will stay available in a sense to them whenever they are open to receive it. So every prayer and assistance that we receive from our loved ones is beneficial to us. So it's two things here. It's the question of always thinking about them in a loving way, and remembering them with love if we have the love for them, but try to avoid asking for assistance directly from them. Normally what's recommended, you go directly to your guardian angel or directly to God and ask for the assistance directly, because then they will send whoever is more prepared to be of assistance. So let's say your great grandfather is a spirit that is very, you don't remember, you never met him, but it's a spirit that is very close connected to you and is one of your familial spirits. Maybe he's the one that is going to come and be of assistance to you, but you don't really know him and you don't remember that you are close. He knows on the other side, so he will come and help you. So we should ask always to our guardian angel or to our protecting spirit generically, because then we are going to receive. Whenever we send personally, we run the risk of the person not being in condition to help us. So we will either not hear it, or it will cause anguish in them for their inability to help us. In the book Between Heaven and Earth by André Luiz, there is the book starts with a prayer that a young girl sends to her mother that discarnated, asking her mother to come and help her because she was dealing with a difficult stepmother and the father and the stepmother, and she was having trouble. So she sends the prayer, she prays to her mother, but because she, the 14 years old, had the merit and deserved the assistance, her mother was actually obsessing the stepmother. So her mother could not even hear the prayer. But the spirits, the protecting spirits, heard the prayer and sent a team, and that's the whole story of the book, to assist her and to help her. So whenever you pray sincerely, even if you pray, in that case, the mother wouldn't even hear the prayer. If you pray sincerely and you are in need of assistance, assistance will be there. The spirits will provide the assistance, whoever is available and prepared. Okay? Any other comments here? Any other questions? It's a very good question. It's important because we need to remember that, because sometimes we don't know exactly to whom to pray. So let's pray to our guardian angel, pray to God, pray to those that we know are going to be able to help us.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay. Any other thing? No? Oh, okay, go ahead.
Okay. What effect does the inconsolable sorrow of survivors have upon spirits who are the object of that sorrow? A spirit is touched by the memory and regrets of those it has loved. However, persistent and unreasonable sorrow is painful because in excessive grief, it seeks a lack of faith in the future and confidence in God. Consequently, this ends up being an obstacle to advancement and perhaps even to their reunion. For a spirit who's happier than it was on earth, regretting the change in life is to regret being happy. Let us take the example of two friends who are prisoners locked up in the same prison. Both of them will be free one day, but one is released before the other. Would it be kind on the part of the one who remains to regret that the other leaves sooner? Would there not be more selfishness than affection when one wants another to remain captive and suffer in the same circumstance as oneself? The same is true with two individuals who love one another on earth. If one leaves first, the other should rejoice while patiently awaiting for his or her own freedom. We may illustrate this subject by means of another comparison. You have a friend whose circumstances result in a painful existence, although he or she remains physically close to you. Thus, your friend's health or interests require a change to another country, whether he or she will be better off in every respect. However, your friend will no longer be near you at every moment, but will still keep in contact with you. This separation between you will only be in your daily life. Should you grieve for the loss of physical contact, considering it is for your friend's own good? Spiritism gives us a clear proof of a future life and its presence around us, as well as the continued affection of people we love and the relationship we are able to keep. Spiritism offers us the greatest consolation for the most painful of human sorrows. Spiritism eliminates loneliness and abandonment because friends with whom one can hold affectionate conversation always surround the most isolated of human beings. We're often impatient with the trials and tribulations of life. They seem so intolerable that we sometimes believe that we cannot endure them. Yet, if we face them with courage and if we're able to silence our complaints, we will rejoice in the remembrance of the experience when we have finished our human existence. The same way that patient rejoices when they recover after completing a painful course of treatment that has cured the disease. Oh, that a patient,
Okay.
that a patient rejoices,
Okay.
not that patient. Okay.
Okay, so there are a couple of things here. And actually, the question and the answer by the spirits is one thing, and then Kardec deviates on other aspects that we are going to try to cover here. So the first thing is, and the important thing, the inconsolable sorrow of survivors, what effect has on the spirits? It has the effect of holding them back, because they can feel our suffering, and they are going to suffer because we are suffering. You know, when you have some, for instance, in the case of someone that loses a parent, let's say someone loses a mother, they are very close connected. And the mother died not in unusual circumstance, just to die of age. So there's nothing out of the ordinary. But the person that stays behind keeps suffering, keeps remembering at all times. So what this causes is a difficulty in the one that had departed in to move on, because of course we care about our loved ones. Of course we suffer when they are suffering. So the fact that they are suffering, they are inconsolable, it hurts the spirit that has departed in a way. Now, let us be very clear, because one thing that also people that start studying spiritism asks, so we shouldn't grieve the loss of loved ones. No, healthy grief is part of the experience. You lose a loved one, you miss, you go through the mourning, you go to the grief, but eventually life has to go back to normal. Again, there are cases and cases. There are more difficult cases and there are more simple cases. We're talking about simple ones, like the one that I gave the example. You lose your mother, she was old, she was supposed to go before you, is a fact of life. Knowing and being a spiritist, we have to miss, mourn, and continue praying for them to be helped and assisted, praying for them to receive everything they need, keep them in our prayers, but we cannot have unreasonable sorrow. The key word here is unreasonable. It has to be a healthy relationship with the pain. So we feel the pain very strong, and then as time goes on, it has to slowly disappear. And eventually, you know, it's a very nice memory that you have, is the longing, the desire to be reunited one day, hopefully soon, maybe not soon, and prepare yourself and continue living. So that's the how to behave when we face the loss of a loved one. Now, then we go to Kardec's explanation, and we have to see that. So let's use the same case, the example I was giving. Someone has a mother that is very sick because of old age, so he has complications, is slowly losing the vital energies, and we try to hang to her, try to make all possible ways for her to continue living when she's suffering more than really enjoying life. So this is selfishness of us. We have to allow the natural process to happen. Sometimes it's better for someone that is suffering, physically suffering here on earth, to detach from the physical body, to go back to the spiritual life, because then they can restart. Another example, someone that has Alzheimer and has been for a long time disconnected from the present world. You know, it's selfishness on our part to want them to stay another year, another 2 years. You know, I had my mother's older sister. She was for 20 years in a bed with Alzheimer. She died when she was 100 years old. And, you know, for the last 15 years, she was in a bed with no communication with anyone. So from the spirit, we understand, according to Spiritism, when you have these extreme cases of Alzheimer, you are already more there than here. You know, it's not, you're not really completely connected to the physical body. But when you are free from the physical body, you have an opportunity to start again there in the spiritual world. So we have to, what we have to do is look into ourselves. Am I being selfish here? Am I missing the person just because of me? Am I wishing them the best? Or is just the natural reaction of us being selfish and want the presence of the loved one close to us when we know that for one reason or another is no longer possible. So it makes the comparison with people, Kardec makes the comparison, people moving from one place to another if they are going to be better served in another country, let's say. So all of this is, it's very important to understand. You know, some of us that have moved to different countries, we don't lose the contact with our loved ones. It's just that we don't have close contact. We are still, the separation is not easy. We miss them. And of course, we would like to be more in contact with them. But as if we look at ourselves as eternal spirits and understand that one life is, like Paco likes to say, a minute in our existence, you know, we shouldn't suffer more than necessary for a temporary separation. That's the important thing. And again, I'm not dismissing suffering here. I'm not dismissing grief. It's important. It's part of us as human beings to deal with our emotions, to feel the pain and the difficulty of the separation. But we have to, after a certain period, we have to look at ourselves and we have to transform it into a healthy relationship with our pain and with the loved one that has departed. Especially like Kardec says here, we are spiritists, so we should know better. There is no excuse for us to be suffering in excess for someone that has departed. Of course, again, you lose a child in an accident, the grief period, the pain, it's going to take longer and you may never completely free yourself from the pain because it's not natural. It's anti-natural to lose someone younger than you. But we're talking about normal losses. We have to be able to deal with normal losses in our life because our parents are supposed to go before us, and that's the way it should be. So when they go, we need to be able to deal with it in a healthy way. Again, it's easy for me to say here, and I understand there are difficulties that each one has their own problems and own issues, but in theory, that's how it should work, okay? Questions, comments?
Me, can I talk? I'd
Yes,
like to
please,
share
go
a
ahead.
beautiful experience what happened with us this Monday. My nephew Gabriel, that you can see in the picture, and my mother, his grandmother, and my nephew now is a medium for 3 years. And last Monday he went to the center, and my mother showed up there, full of lights, and sent him a message. No, he said she didn't talk. It was mentally. And she was very happy and said, tell everybody that I'm very happy. So, and he was so happy and in the center. But, and you can imagine, my mother just died 1 year ago. And she's already show up.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, it's well, 1 year is a good amount of time, and if she, if I remember correctly, Marisa, she went back to the spiritual world without any major problem, right? She was just sick. Normally, she got sick, and end up. Normally we say when the last phase of the physical life takes a while through pain, disease, and sickness, the recover in the spiritual world is much faster because you are already kind of leaving your physical body slowly. When it's an accident, it's much more difficult because there is the surprise, there is the lack of understanding, the lack of acceptance. So I'm sure your mother accepted easily, understood what happened to her, and it's natural. Again, right? She was not that young anymore. So the natural process, the beautiful thing about the natural process is exactly what happened to your mother. 1 year later, she's very happy. She's already sending her love and her messages of affection, and that's what we need to keep in mind. That if they are happy there, we should be happy here. We miss them, of course. Miss them, yes, but miss in a healthy way. With love in our hearts, with care, because that's the relationship that she was going to benefit. She'll continue to be happy there, and she, of course, she misses us also, but she can come like she came and be close to us when needed. So it's important for us to understand the process and to accept the process as a natural process of life, right?
Yeah. As you said, as you know, as you studied the spiritism, no more pain, no more suffering over there. Isn't it wonderful? I feel so comfortable because I saw my mother suffering so much because the situation, the health situation, and because the age, as you said, and now she's free, she's happy.
Yes,
oh
exactly.
My gosh, I love spiritism.
If we the thing is, we keep repeating this and we keep saying the same things over and over, but in the end we always have some doubts in the back of our minds. We have we are unsure if that's really what's happening. So
then you have an experience. Oh, it's amazing. Oh my gosh, it's amazing. You don't die. You don't die.
Yeah, it's great that when we have these proofs, the proof that she's alive and she's happy. What else do you want for her, right? You want that. You don't want anything else. Yeah, if she was still here, she would probably be in bad suffering, right? So she's there, happy. So that's important.
Yeah, we are so grateful. Oh my gosh, yeah, it's amazing. Thank you. I share my experience.
That was
Thanks for
beautiful.
sharing.
Thank you.
Anyone else? We are changing subjects, okay? So if anyone has anything to do with loss of loved ones, no comments?
No comment.
Go on.
Okay, so disappointment, shatter affections.
That's a good one.
Yes.
It's the disappointment that leads to ingratitude and the fragility of friendship, another source of bitterness for the human heart. Yes, but we teach you to feel pity for the ungrateful and faithless friends as they are not more unhappy than you. Ingratitude comes from selfishness, and people who are selfish eventually need hearts as callous as their own. Think of all those who have done more good than you, who are more worthy than you are, and whose kindnesses were paid with ingratitude. Remember that in his life, Jesus was ridiculed, despised, and treated as both a criminal and a fraud. You should not be shocked if you are treated in the same way. The knowledge that you have done good should be your reward in your present life. And do not worry about what people who have benefited from it say. Ingratitude tests your persistence in doing good. It counts in your favor in the future. And those who have ignored your kindness will be punished. The greater the ingratitude, the more severe the atonement.
Okay, so this is a subject that is very close to all of us, right? Because
Yes.
at a certain point in our lives, we all had the experience of having gratitude from someone that we thought you was a friend or was a partner or was close to us, and then we were surprised by issues that happened in these situations. Now, what the spirits are telling us is, again, you are spiritists, right? We know that we are all imperfect human beings living in a world of trials and atonements, and we all have a lot of imperfections. So when we do something for someone else and we are paid with ingratitude, instead of feeling angry, feeling sad, what we should feel is, like they say here, pity. We should feel that unfortunately they are still not able to understand our kindness, our help. And again, everything has cause and consequence. Everything that we studied on Sunday with Julio, action and reaction, cause and consequence. So if anyone is shows ingratitude to you and that you have a clear conscience that you did the best that you could according to your abilities, we have to move on. Because feeling angry, feeling upset, it only harms ourselves. Sometimes people that are ungrateful or move away from us, they are not really suffering, or they are not having any problem with it. They are living their lives, and we are here, and we are the ones left behind with all the struggles, all suffering. That we are only hurting ourselves. We're not hurting them. Remember what Chico Xavier said, right? When you hate someone, you send a copy and you keep the original. You are going to hurt yourself much more than you are going to hurt the other person. So understanding the law of cause and consequence, everyone will have to face the consequence for their actions. Again, we kind of always say the word punished here is not an external punishment. It's a punishment according to the natural laws, a punishment of cause and consequence. So whatever you do, your actions will cause a reaction. And if you do, the action is in the wrong direction, you cause a reaction that will feel like a punishment. And the greater the issue, the more severe it's going to be the consequence, of course. And the more we know, the more we are responsible. So we have to think also on the other side. Haven't we been ungrateful and unkind to someone in our lives? I'm sure all of us have been. We're not here in this earth, and we're not perfect spirits. So we're not here on this earth by chance. We're still struggling. We're still imperfect. So we caused harm to others. What are we doing with this harm that we cause to others? What are we doing with this, our own ingratitude to others, to those that considered us friends or more than that, and now we left them aside, behind, or whatever? So we have to look at ourselves and try to really go deep and try to see the reasons, try to understand the reasons from the other side and understand the reasons from our side. And if we did the best that we could and still had no effect on the other side, that's their problem. It's not our problem. Not easy, but that's how we should try to deal with these situations. Okay? Anyone?
No? Yes, João. I remember something that I read recently about exactly that, actually, about relationships. And this guy was saying that something like, if your absence doesn't bother them, your presence never mattered. And I think just kind of puts you in a place to, you're making the person uncomfortable by your presence in a way, because the person doesn't want you, doesn't need you, doesn't have to do anything with you. And once you realize that, of course, it's a shock. But as spiritists, I think we understand that, and it's easier for us to move on based on that.
Should be, right? But fortunately, we're still too selfish, too proud, and we tend to our first knee-jerk reaction is to be angry, to be sad, to throw all the bad emotions out, right? But yes, you are absolutely right. I love the phrase. Can you repeat, Fabio? I loved it. How is it?
Sure. It's if your absence doesn't bother them, your presence never mattered. I'll write also in the chat.
I like that. Paco, you're going to say something?
Yeah. I have to confess that have you ever had the experience of holding the door for someone and someone passes by, a second one passes by, and no one says thank you while you're holding the door? That, I have to confess, that gets me angry, So I have to, I know I should do it, but I have to work on that.
Paco, do it like me. You just pretend that you heard a spirit saying thank you and just move on. Let them.
Yes, I'm going to do that.
And actually, the example you gave, Paco, is the good training, because the easy ones, the ones that didn't thank you, you don't know them, so that there is no harm, and it's a good exercise for you to train your acceptance and patience, right?
Yes.
Yeah. Luis? Yeah. Oh, sorry. Paco is still talking. Sorry. Go ahead, Paco.
I'm not there yet. I'm still expecting, not in kind, but a thank you would make me feel good. I have to be, I tell you, I still need, this is progress, not perfection. So I still need to work in this area. That's my point.
I thought you were a perfect spirit, Paco. You always said that you're a
Well,
perfect spirit.
sometimes I make believe I'm not.
Luis.
Well, I understand your point that we are human, we are not perfect, but I should say something. I believe all of us, the 28 that are here on this group, we should, I suggest that we require more of ourselves. You mentioned that we are spiritists. I believe we should be more. We should be serious spiritists. And there's a test I usually mention that the serious spiritist doesn't limit himself to believe, but he understands, and he understands because he reasons. And the serious spirits know that he should be a human of good, a good human, a moral human. And in such, we should try to get more of ourselves. To say that, yeah, we are human, and to sell ourselves short. We should be a little bit above that because we are serious spirits. We reason, and because we reason, we understand, and we change our behavior and the way we think. What do you think about that?
No, I agree with you. I'm not saying that we shouldn't make an effort every day. The true spiritist is the one that tries to improve every day to be better than they were yesterday, right? And and again, I agree with you. Using reason, using logic, why it's good for me to behave like that. Why it's good for me to move on from these challenges, because of the consequences are going to be beneficial for me. I'm the one that's going to benefit from not holding grudges and not wishing harm to others, right? But it's an exercise. Requires discipline, requires commitment.
And maybe a little more, João, because it's the right thing to do. It's the right thing to do. Yeah.
Oh, I agree. But from being the right thing to do until we do it, unfortunately, it's not that easy in some aspects. In others are more easy. So let's finish this item, Paco. We have some time.
Okay.
So it's the last question.
Are the disappointments are the disappointments that ingratitude causes meant to harden the heart and turn it callous and insensitive? That is wrong, because virtuous people are always happy to do good for others. They know that if those they have helped do not recognize their kindness in this life, they will in the future one, and they will then feel shame and remorse for their ingratitude. However, this knowledge does not prevent them from being hurt by ingratitude in this life. Could this pain lead them to think that they would be happier if they were less sensitive? Yes, if they prefer selfish happiness. Still, this sort of happiness is very pitiful. People must try to understand that the ungrateful friends who desert them are unworthy of their friendship, and they are mistaken in their thoughts of them. They should no longer regret the loss of these friends. Other friends who are better able to understand the motivation behind their acts of goodwill will take their place. Wow. You should pity those from whom you have received poor treatment, which you did not deserve, because they will receive severe retribution. You should not allow yourself to be upset by their bad behavior. Your ability to remain unaffected by their ill treatment places you above them. Nature has given human beings the need to love and be loved. One of the greatest joys given to them on earth is meeting like-minded hearts. This sympathy gives them a taste of the happiness that awaits them in the world of perfect spirits, where love and kindness reign. this type of happiness is denied to the selfish. Wow. Wow.
Okay.
That's,
Okay,
I
so
like.
the basic question here is, these disappointments, can they harden the heart and turns us into insensitive people? And the spirits are clear here. That is wrong, because virtuous people are always happy to do good for others, and always happy to do good for others without expecting any retribution. There is the characteristic of true charity. If you are a charitable person, you are going to do good for others without expecting any retribution. So if they don't recognize their kindness, it's not a problem. They will recognize one day. And they will feel shame and remorse. So we have to do the best of that we can to help and assist those in need, to practice charity, to be kind, and not allow the reaction of others to influence us, to cause us to become more insensitive or more hard-hearted. Again, can we feel hurt? Is wrong to feel hurt? We are humans. We have feelings. It's nothing wrong if we do something for someone and we don't receive the recognition we think we should receive. We feel it. It's normal. But to transform this feeling into negative feelings of hatred, of indifference, of giving up what we are doing, this is the wrong approach. This is what Spiritism tries to teach us, to choose the approach of grow. It's a growing that we have to do by ourselves, that are independent of others. So by helping and assisting others, by being charitable, we are going to evolve. The reaction on the other side is not our problem, it's their problem. And if they don't recognize, and if they move away from us, as they say, the spirits say here, others will come. And I like when Kardec says here, one of the greatest joys given to them on earth is meeting like-minded hearts. And like Luis just said, we are 28 like-minded hearts here, sharing our interest in something that will help us all improve ourselves. So work for the benefit of others, we are going to benefit ourselves. Leave to the others the consequences of their own acceptance or not acceptance of the work that we do. Okay?
Yes.
Comments, questions? Final ones? No? You want to get away with without any comments? Okay. So we're done here. Next week, we move to antipathetic relationships, which are the opposite of sympathetic spirits. But before we go to our final prayer, let us talk about this weekend, because it's an important weekend. We have a couple of lectures. More important to us at SGNY is the lecture on Sunday with Dr. Décio Yandoli Jr., who is a doctor specialized in general surgery and endoscopy. He's a member of the Medical Spiritist Association, the president of the Medical Spirit Association of Mato Grosso in Brazil, and the vice president of the International Spiritist Medical Association. Some of you may remember him. He was with us a couple of years ago, and we had a lecture there at the center. He's going to talk about health and spirituality, and that's on Sunday at 11 a.m. And it's through our YouTube channel or Facebook channel. So it's not through our regular Zoom channel. So you have to go to SGNY Facebook page or Spiritist of Group of New York YouTube channel to watch the lecture. The lecture is going to be in Portuguese with consecutive translation by your truths only. I hope I can have Elmo assisting me with the medical and terms and the part of the doctor part of it. But I'll try my best, and I know that you guys will be trying to help me in thoughts. I appreciate. But on Saturday, we have a lecture by the United States Spiritist Federation by Daniel Francisco Rossi. He's going to talk about Journey of Life. That's Saturday, 11 a.m. through the Facebook or YouTube of the United States Spiritist Federation. And for those who have kids, this weekend, we have the 17th Family Spiritist Retreat, which is the event every year that they have at the park in Connecticut, that this year is going to be virtual. So it's a 2-day event starting at 1 p.m. on Saturday and Sunday. You can go look at our email if you want to register. There is a series of different events. You can register for different events. Each block has 1 hour duration. There is a teens talk. There is a activity for children, activity for parents, a lot of activities, and it's really worth, if you want to get more information, please go to the the Tri-State Spiritist Federation website, or you can connect through our email or through our website, and you can find more information there. Okay, so this is something. If you want more information, I can provide after. Okay, now I'm going to ask Carol to do our final prayer.
Thank you. Infinite Creator, good spirits, all goodness and grace, we are grateful to be together this evening to study the Spirit's book. We are grateful because we are feeling in our hearts and like-minded in mind to receive these teachings, to go deeper into the studies of Spiritism. We are truly blessed. We give thanks to the spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors, the guides who are with us this evening, giving us assistance, help, comfort, and guidance. We know that it is also our part to do the best we can each day, to be charitable, to be kind, and to create within ourselves a beautiful vibration of peace and understanding and goodwill. We give thanks for the understanding that we know that as summer comes, fall will come, winter, and yet spring will come again. We realize that all things will pass, including our loved ones. We know that this is often very difficult, but we know in our heart of hearts that we will at one point see them again in the spirit world. We are grateful for this knowledge, and we are grateful that we can share this with others who are receptive. As we close this portion of the meeting this evening, may we receive the love and light of Christ within us, the high consciousness that reigns. May it come within us fully. May we embrace it, and may we share it. We close now and ask to be beacons of light. We ask for safety, protection, especially for our loved ones, those who are in situations that need a deep understanding, that need healing, that need guidance. We believe that these prayers will be answered as we do our part. We close now and ask for safety and protection to go on our way to friends, family, loved ones, and co-workers. Go forth now in peace. So be it.
All right, so you continue with the Miriam's book. I know that João already, you guys already read and commented item 7 on chapter 2, with the very first item and the chapter, the extraordinary and supernatural. We're not going to read it on number 7, but I'm going to comment, especially for those who may not have been here last week, as I was not, because to continue on 8 without talking about 7, I would be lost. I don't want anyone to be lost. So you can see here in this book that Kardec, like the good teacher that he is, he used a method of putting layer upon layer upon layer, like building blocks for now for our understand. And he started the first chapter with Are Thy Spirits? And he brings very good arguments for the existence of spirits. Now, there are those who will challenge that existence, and there are those who will put spirits in an order of the supernatural, the extraordinary. And in this chapter now, Kardec will challenge this argument. And like in the book, What is Spiritism? Kardec places questions or arguments of those who are on the other side. And the other side means those who do not believe in spiritism, do not agree with spiritism. And just like in that book, he puts the questions of he puts the arguments of those who do not like spiritism or reject the idea of spiritism, so he can re-argument, so he can put his point of view, so he can put his statements clearly. And that's what he uses in this chapter that we're going to read now. So on item 7 that you guys just read last week, and again, this is chapter 2, the very first beginning, okay? The extraordinary and the supernatural. Kardec places one statement. He says clearly, he states that. He's not arguing, he's not proposing, he says clearly that spirits and their manifestation is present in no cultures, modern and ancient, and it is present in all the holy books of all religions. One may disagree, one may that he makes that statement. He's not proposing that theory. He states that. Okay, agree or doesn't agree, we're gonna have to go and discuss with Kardec. Okay, and based on this statement, he builds up this whole item 7. Okay, and again, using the method of people arguing with him, he says that how could spirits and the manifestation of spirits upon matter be just a theory, be just a human creation of our imagination, if it is present in all cultures, it's present in all the holy books. We know for our science, and that goes direct to the scientists, that there is truth in repetition. A theory becomes a law when it can be repeated in the same situations, and you can consistently get the same results. If you do an experiment and in the same conditions and continue to get the same results, then it's no longer just a theory, it becomes a law, right? And spirits, you can call it soul, we can call it anything you want to call it, and their influence upon our lives is omnipresent in all cultures, in all religions, okay? And he, again, have the argument that those who challenge spiritism will now ask, okay, this thing of spirits is because humans have always been in love with the extraordinary. And Kardec asks, so what is extraordinary? And the answer would be, is the supernatural. And then Kardec again asks, and what is the supernatural? And then they will answer, anything that is contrary to the laws of nature. Now Kardec came back to them and say, how can we claim to know all the laws of nature? For you to tell me that something is against or it defies the law of nature, you have to know all the laws of nature. And if you don't know that, you cannot make that statement. Okay? And I personally put the question is that Kardec did not ask, that is, what leads us, human beings, to being so much in love with the abstract, with the notion of spirits, the idea that they can participate in our physical life? And it's in all cultures, again, we know that it is in all cultures, okay? Is that our ability to perceive that existence without being able to explain this perception? But Kardec continues, Spiritism as a science, it expands our understanding of the natural laws. And by understanding, or by expanding our understanding of those natural laws, it removes the spirits and the manifestation of the spirits from the supernatural to the natural. Now Spiritism proves that spirits and their manifestation in our lives is a natural phenomenon. It's nothing of extraordinary, it's nothing of supernatural. And it goes later on and it says, on the contrary, resurrection, let's say, which the return to life of a dead body, that would be supernatural. Our science shows that a decaying matter cannot return to life. If that would happen, that would be supernatural, which does not happen. And then Kardec makes two more powerful statements in the same item 7. That's why it's so important that we talk about this item 7 if you don't read it. And these two statements are, one, thought is one of the attributes of the Spirit. Again, he's not proposing it, he's making a flat statement. He's saying over here that thoughts, you may disagree, you may not like, and then you take with him. But he's saying to us here, thought is one of the attributes of the Spirit. And another important statement that he's making is say, through its physiological, its being the Spirit, through its physiological constitution, the Spirit is able to act upon matter. It's able to impress our senses, and it's able to transmit its thoughts to us. Again, he's making a statement here, okay? And in reality, those three things is what this book's all about. These three things is what mediumship is all about. Is the ability of the discarnate spirit to act upon matter, physical phenomena. Is the ability to impress in our sense, physical and intelligent phenomena, and to transmit with thoughts to us, intelligent phenomena. These three things over here is extremely important because this is this whole book we're going to read now. Okay, there's any question, comments on the item 7? If you're not, can I start reading number 8, please?
You're on mute, Paco.
Okay, I'm mute. I did it. 8. Nevertheless, they will say, You claim that a spirit can lift a table and hold it up in the air without any support. Isn't that a derogation from the law of gravity? Yes, from the law as we have known it. But has nature already spoken her last word? Before the experiments involving the lifting power of certain gases, who would have thought that a heavy object carrying several persons could overcome the power of gravity? Wouldn't that at first have seemed extraordinary or diabolical to a common individual? A century ago, whoever proposed to transmit a telegram to a distance of 1,500 miles and receive a response in only a few minutes would have been considered crazy. And if it had actually occurred, everyone would have believed that such a person had had the devil under his or her orders. Because back then, only the devil was capable of traveling so quickly. Under certain conditions, then, why couldn't an unknown fluid possess a property that offsets the effect of gravity on a table, just as hydrogen offsets the weight of a balloon? We should note in passing that this is only a comparison, not an assimilation, made solely to show by analogy that the lifting of a table is not physically impossible. It was precisely when learned individuals, upon observing such types of phenomena, wanted to proceed by means of assimilation that they were led astray. The phenomenon exists nonetheless, and all the denials in the world cannot make it otherwise, because denial does not constitute proof. For us, there's nothing supernatural about it, and that is all we have to say about it for now.
Thank you, Paco.
Okay.
All right, so this chapter shows why it was so important, or this number 8, I'm sorry. Why is it so important to the promised consoler wait until our science, our physical science, have developed to where it had developed to the 1850s before the spiritual could show up. Because lots of the abstract concepts that is brought in Spiritism now makes more sense with the advancement of our physical sciences. So they would say that the moving of the table, and again, this is Kardec proposes arguments of those who are against Spiritism, right? So, and there you propose that levitation, fluctuation of tables, goes against the laws of gravity. And Kardec says, yes, as much as we know of laws of gravity. Are you claiming that you fully understand the laws of gravity? And for that matter, today, this law of gravity is one of the greatest challenges in science. Is still, we don't understand gravity very well yet. It is still one of the biggest challenges in the physical science. But now we are able to put a bunch of people in the basket of a balloon and make it fluctuate. And science is able to explain it. Now we are able to have a telegram at 15,000 miles at distance and receive messages in a matter of minutes. And that is 1850s, right? 1860s, I'm sorry.
1860, yeah.
So science can show us the possibility of levitation of objects without anybody being there holding it. So there are energies, there are forces that are able to create levitation of heavy objects. Okay, there's any comments there?
No.
Okay, so continue to read.
Okay. 9.
Sorry, Daniela has a question.
Sure.
Go, Dani.
What I think is interesting, very interesting in the text is that he says back then that everything that could be not explained was attributed to the devil, right? So like science can't prove, then it must come from the devil. But then people believed in the devil. So what does devil mean? It means everything we can't explain through science, right?
Say that again for me, please.
The way he uses here the example of devil, like
the velocity, right? The velocity that at that time, nothing could travel that fast.
yeah, so like
only the devil could travel at that velocity. Yes.
yeah, like the example of the telegram or the balloon that could float. People could be passengers flying in the air, defying gravity and things. So he gives some examples of experiences that they were going through at that moment that science would then explain, but if anything could not be explained, and then it was attributed to the devil. So, but what devil means? It means.
Yeah, but important to mention that that belief would be a century ago, right? When he starts saying a century ago. However, proposed to transmit a telegram at a distance of 1,500 miles, and the receiver response is only a few minutes, would have been considered crazy. So he's talking about those that are a century ago. At that time of Kardec, that was already known and then was not attributed to the devil any longer.
I know, but if someone said, okay, one day we're going to have internet, it's like they couldn't explain internet, or they couldn't explain a telephone, they couldn't explain a fax or a computer. So I think interesting from the text here that things that they could not understand, that science could not prove, it was attributed to the devil. So my thinking is, what is the devil? Because devil is it's an evil thing, or is something supernatural, is something we cannot explain.
No, the devil to them would necessarily be a bad thing. Okay, so I'm sorry.
The devil would be a bad thing or not?
A bad thing, yes.
Uh-huh.
You'd not attribute the devil to anything that is good, unless you're on his side, of course.
Yeah, but people would believe in the devil, which
yes.
in reality, in many cases, were things that they could not explain.
Yes, and that the people of a century ago, everything that they could not explain, basically there was no science basically at that time, used to be attributed, especially in Europe of the Middle Ages, would be attributed to the extraordinary. Okay, it would be a miracle, would be the work of the devil.
Mm-hmm.
I think there are some religions even to this day that
yes,
things to the devil. So basically, if you can't understand something that it doesn't make sense in your world, the explanation doesn't make sense, and then okay, it's from the devil, but they believe in the devil.
yes. Just the other day, an educated person, a physician assistant who is working with a bunch of researchers doing cardiac research, very smart guy, have come to me and told me that dinosaurs are a product of human imagination.
Mm-hmm.
So there are those dinosaurs out there. But the interesting thing here with Kardec in this with his arguments and the whole book, What's Spiritism, is that he's actually addressing a more intellectual community. He's actually addressing to those who are able to make the transition and those who are proposing those arguments to Kardec. See, the comment that they developed here is in the reference of people of 100 years before this discussion.
Well, more or less, because the people in his time did not believe in spirits. A lot of them.
But that's what I'm saying.
He's trying to prove that a spirit is part of the natural law. So he's talking about his own time, when people say spirits that don't exist, and then it's maybe from the devil, attributed to the devil.
Yes, but the comment about the velocity of the communication, he is saying that people over 100 years ago would attribute such a speed only to the devil, not for the individuals of his time to whom he's arguing right now.
I know, because he wants to prove that the spirits are part of our natural world.
Correct.
To the people of his own time, and these people might be attributing that to the devil the same way, right?
Right. It's the same way that if you are arguing now, I could say to you, people of 100 years ago could never imagine that it could open a little box, put some food in there, and in 10 minutes it would be ready. It makes no sense to them. But today, because we are used to the microwave, we don't have a problem with that. So the people of his time did not have a problem with the telegram anymore. But people 100 years before would have a serious problem with that.
Exactly.
And then he says that the denials does not constitute proof. So denying it doesn't mean that
I love that statement.
Right?
I think, I missed to say that. I mean, the fact that you deny something does not mean that it does not exist. And it's the question that, Divaldo tells us, that he had this friend who keeps asking him to prove the existence of spirits, and one day he got tired of it and says, okay, so now you prove to me that they do not exist.
Yeah.
If I cannot prove to you that they do exist besides all my arguments, now it's your time. You prove to me that they do not exist.
I like that.
Yeah, I was having a conversation many years ago with a teacher of mine, and she doesn't believe in God. So it was a very brief conversation, and I said, okay, why? Well, because we cannot prove this. And I said, can you prove that love exists? I first asked her, do you love your children? She said, yeah. Can you prove that love exists to me right now, that you love your children? She couldn't answer.
Oh, that's right.
How I'm going, okay, I love, what does it mean? Can you prove it? The feeling, right? So, yeah, I love this kind of conversations.
Yeah, me too.
Luis has a question.
Elmo.
Yes.
We know that the codification is the expression of the thoughts of a number of superior spirits. And we also know that Kardec shaped it in an understandable way. He had a contribution on how he shaped it. I read in many parts of Kardec's writing, between the lines, a lot of frustration for the non-acceptance that we know happened when he presented his ideas and his writings to the society of the time. I believe that, in my view, I will ask if you agree, that a lot of things in this part of the Medium book, we can read between the lines that he's actually arguing a frustration against those guys that were fighting his ideas, his revelations. Don't you read that between the line as well in a lot of places in the Medium book, such as those? Hi
Elmo,
there.
you're there? Elmo? We lost Elmo?
He got bored with my long statement.
Okay, so I'll try to answer. I think it must have been very frustrating for Kardec to have
Am I
to
back?
repeat the whole. Yes, you're back.
Okay, good.
Okay.
Did I bore
If
you
you
to
want to.
that, Elmo?
Oh, absolutely not. That is a great question. Because I don't read the frustration. I don't see the frustration. Here in this passage and in the What is Spiritism, he brings those questions that were actually being proposed to him. He creates the characters, of the priest, of the scientist, and what the spirit is. But those questions or those arguments of those against spiritism was actually placed to him, and he answers them with his reasonable arguments. But I don't read personally. I don't read the frustration. On the contrary, I think actually there was the expectation of not being able to convince those who are not willing to open their minds. And that's why I think that he has these layers of layered methodology to say, let's first start with other spirits. Because if I was not able to convince you, put up the book away, throw the book away, because there is no meaning to continue this conversation anymore. Now, if you get at least an inkling to continue, maybe there are spirits, he goes to the next layer. Is this thing extraordinary? Is this thing supernatural? If Kardec's able to say, to put in our mind that maybe it's not so supernatural, he continues to put the layers upon layers of the doctrine to us. Did he had frustrations? I'm sure he did, right? That's why I don't discuss spiritualism outside, because I cannot handle, be so frustrated and angry that I'd rather not do it. But I think Kardec was way above that.
Yeah. May I share something? I'd like to.
Yes,
Hello?
please. Yes?
Yeah. I look at this type of presentation as a didactic type. Remember, Kardec was an educator, okay? So he was a teacher. So this is the kind of questioning that, that we call it nowadays discovery approach, in which you start, and last week we said that it was a philosophical approach. It's a way of questioning people to come into a logical answer. So it's a way of teaching, actually, if you look at it, a way of presentation, a
Yes,
philosophical context.
it is a didactic methodology, but
Yes.
it's also in his intellectual group, where he was an intellectual. All those arguments that he places over here against spiritism or contrary to spiritism are arguments, a question that he heard himself, and he put those answers on a book, on the Spiritist magazine, for everyone who would have those kinds of questions and arguments, which are, in my opinion, very good arguments. Those who did not agree with Spiritism, they are not dumb people. They were also intellectuals, and they have very good arguments. And Kardec select those good arguments to counter-argue. But again, that's my impression, that he didn't pass, if he had frustration, he didn't pass them to us.
No, I don't see the frustration either.
João?
Go on.
Yeah, no, I have nothing to add here.
Oh, okay. Yeah, but I thanks Daniela for this, for bringing out that, because denial does not constitute proof. I mean, I forgot to say that's extremely important. The fact that I deny something doesn't mean that the thing does not exist.
Denial doesn't make proof.
Okay. Read some more.
Yeah. Okay. If the fact of the phenomenon is proven, they will say, then we will accept it and we will even accept the cause you attributed to it. An example, an unknown fluid. But who can prove that spirits are involved? That is, what is extraordinary and supernatural? To me,
Okay, thanks.
okay.
So see how he's building the layers. Okay, so maybe now accept the idea that they do exist. And I'll even go along with you and say that what allows the phenomena to happen, and here is being specific, the fluctuation or the levitation of tables. Okay, it's not against the gravity laws, because you don't know gravity laws so well. And I even accept the idea that what allow it to happen is what you call fluids, those unknown fluids. And then is their arguments here. How can you tell that because this happens, because this thing, those tables are able to fluctuate, those tables are able to levitate, it is due to the action of spirits. And that exactly what makes it supernatural. That those fluids, those things that are able to make at the table levitate, is what makes it supernatural. So you see, Kardec already laid another layer over here. So now those who are skeptical already accept, okay, so your argument has been convincing that we don't know the law of gravity so well yet, and now we know that there are forces who are able to make heavy objects to levitate, to fluctuate, in the case of balloons. But in this case, how can you tell me that the spirits are the ones responsible to make those things lift up? That is the point of those actions that people witnessed, people saw those tables fluctuating, people saw those tables give intelligent answers to questions. That's what is supernatural. So we already gained 1 point, because they already gained 1 point. People already accept the idea that the tables could fluctuate, could levitate, but not because of spirits. And because it's not of spirits, that's what makes it supernatural. Okay?
Okay. Go on.
Unless anybody has a question, comment. Okay, go on.
Okay. To meet this objection, a full demonstration of the phenomenon would be necessary, which of course would not be plausible here. Besides, it would comprise a redundancy since the phenomenon is emphasized in every other aspect of the teaching. Nevertheless, in order to sum it up in a few words, we will state that the phenomenon is theoretically based upon this principle. Every intelligent effect must have an intelligent cause. In practice, this means that concerning the observation of so-called spirit phenomena having given evidence of an intelligence whose cause could not have originated in matter, that this intelligence did not originate with the observers themselves, a fact that was proven from the experience of self, but had to be independent of them, and that since the being who produced them could not be seen, then this intelligence had to be regarded as an invisible being. Thus, Proceeding from one observation to the next, we came to the conclusion that this invisible being, to whom was given the name spirit, was none other than the soul of an individual who used to be alive corporeally, and that death had freed this soul of its coarse, visible envelope, leaving it with only an ethereal one that is invisible in its normal state. And this, then, the extraordinary and supernatural are reduced to a most simple explanation. The existence of these invisible beings having been proven, it was then shown that their action upon matter results from the nature of their fluidic envelope. This action is intelligent, since upon dying, they lose only their body and retain the intelligence that comprises their true essence. This is the key to all the phenomena erroneously regarded as supernatural. Therefore, the existence of spirits does not result from a preconceived theory or a hypothesis dreamed up to explain the facts, but instead it is the result of observation and the natural consequence of the existence of the soul. To deny this cause is to deny the soul and its attributes. Those who think that they can find a more rational solution for such intelligent effects, and especially that they can explain away all the facts, let them do so. Then we can discuss the merits of both sides of the matter.
Okay. Okay, so assume that Kardec gained one point, that people accept the phenomena of the levitation of the tables, or more important here is that the tables are giving answers to questions. Kardec says, in order to really make a proof and a demonstration or approval of this phenomena, ideally would perform the phenomena, which is impossible in the case, you cannot see the phenomena in a book, right? Or in a magazine. So we're going to use a theory. If we cannot do the practice, we're going to do the theory. And the theory is well known and is undisputed. So it is a fact that every intelligent effect must have an intelligent cause. Since a table does not have intelligence, does not have a brain, does not have a memory apparatus device, nor does a table, and it's providing intelligent answers to questions, there must be an intelligence cause. So something behind provide those answers, not the table, not the chairs themselves. And through their research, to their studies, investigation, observations, they conclude that answers was not being given by any corporeal being present in that room or that place, meaning was not produced by any of the mediums, by any of like spectators that was in that location when that table, when that inanimate object provided intelligent questions. So it has to come from some invisible source. And this, Kardec reached that conclusion, again, through investigation, to research, to study, to observations, right, using a scientific methodology. So he concludes that there is an invisible source providing answers. Call it spirits, call it whatever you want to call it the soul, And then we have to do another question is, so what are those spirits? Let's assume that now I believe that there is indeed an intelligent thing providing intelligent answers to questions, making those tables fluctuate, maybe things by wrapping and giving answers. One tab is A, two tab is B, and so forth, and so forth, and so forth, and so on. It could actually form words and form phrases that only an intelligent thing could produce. So what is this thing? Well, Kardec called it spirits. Some would call it soul, which would be a wrong definition in Spiritism, but could be accepted in the other religious studies or doctrines. And through his investigation, through his studies, he concluded that this invisible thing that we're gonna call spirits are the individuals who once lived on earth and left the physical body behind. So if now we are incarnate beings where there's three things in one, physical body, spiritual body, and spiritual with our essence, the ones provide those intelligent answers are the individuals with two things now, the spiritual body and the spirit themselves, the essence, minus the physical body. And then the existence of the spirits is being proved through observation, through studies, through repetition of experiments, but it was experiments again through observation, okay? It's the Spiritism is a science of observation. And it's not a result of preconceived theory. It's not a hypothesis, because now they did the observation, they did the studies using scientific methodology, and conclude the spirits do exist, and the spirits are just we minus a physical body. And he tests his adversary, so to say, whoever have a bad explanation, bring it on and let us argue, let us discuss it, let us put those our arguments and your arguments together to see now which one should prevail, which is the right attitude of any intellectual. It must be the attitude of anyone, any scientist. A scientist must be completely open to say, oh, my experiment is wrong. There is an error over here that I need to correct. It's good that the other side showed it to me. The progress of science can only be achieved through this, and it is achieved through this. So Kardec is saying, if you have any better explanation of how those phenomena are happening, bring it on, let's discuss it. Let's see which one would prevail. And as much as I know, nobody brought any other arguments to him. Question, comments?
Only a lot of denial, right?
And again, those who completely closed up, Kardec's not going to be bad with them. And on the contrary, this book and all these arguments, for those who are interested in, to be open-minded to accept some new paradigms, those who are completely with their heads on the sand, Kardec is not wasting time with them. All right? Comments, questions? Continue.
Carol, yes.
Just a general question. In the olden days, so to speak, when they had seances and they had regular spirit circles, usually sitters, maybe from 4 to 10 people, would sit, not necessarily listening for messages, but some would be involved, like with the table tipping. However, if there was an observer, wouldn't the observer perhaps assume that the group themselves may have been creating the phenomenon based on their group energy? This is just a comment to put out there. Would that be something that perhaps Kardec would have answered?
Yes, and those was on the questions that Kardec proposed in his hypothesis. That in reality, his method was to rule out all of the other possibilities to come to the spirits, right? So to conclude the existence of spirits and spirits being us minus a physical body was basically a conclusion by ruling out all the other possibilities. He needed to rule out all the possible frauds, and there was a lot of frauds going on. There was a lot of people trying to make a buck with the simplicity of people. There was a lot of frauds going on with that. Kardec was able to see many of them. He needs to rule out this possibility is that because Kardec was involved with magnetism himself, he was one of the disciples what's the French guy name? I forgot. Mesmer, I'm sorry.
Mesmer.
One of the disciples of Mesmer. He was involved with mesmerism himself before he got into spiritism. So he knew of those so-called human abilities of having this energy that you do not quite understand yet. He needs to rule that out. And he needs to rule basically item by item by item, say, this is not it, this is not that, this is not that, this is not that. Okay, the only thing left here now is spirits. And that was actually one of the big part of his studies, make sure that whatever was happening there was not caused by the minds of the individual in that room, individually and collectively.
Thank you, Elmo. Appreciate
Sure.
it. Thank you.
Now the question is, could he actually make it happen? Perhaps he could in some situations. But Kardec has to rule that out and say that in those specific observation of ours, there was no mesmerism going on. There was no magnetism going on. It was the work of spirits. Yes, Luis.
I just want to make sure that the concept I have is correct. As of my studies, that I don't have a reference here now, I understand that the central idea, or the first idea, was that if I have an intelligent behavior, it must come from something intelligent, and that is essential. Then what is performing this intelligent behavior is something he called the spirit. But I think, who are those spirits? Are they angels? Are they another part of creation? I understand that the conclusion that spirits are just us after this incarnation. and we go on is something that was told by the spirits themselves. Is that correct?
That is correct. And it is actually, when I put a note over here when I was reading, it's a big jump, right? It's a big jump to conclude that those invisible things are spirit. And then he jumps from that to say, and this thing that I call spirits, by the way, is just us minus a physical body. It is a big jump. No, when you're trying to create layer by layer, that was a big chunk of layer right there, right? But yes, the conclusion that he got, that spirits are us without a physical body, is given to the spirits himself, that he had done the work of getting, okay, you're telling me that you are the spirit of someone who died some time ago, right? Yeah, so give me your information. Where did you die? How did you die? When did you die? And he went and did the research to localize documentation that, yes, indeed, that spirit who says that her name was Mary, and she said that she died in Paris 60 years ago. He goes and he research and he finds the documentation that says, yeah, indeed, this is person. Mary, all the information are here, cannot be anything else. This cannot be made up. He did that work to come to that conclusion. Again, that is another part of his investigation, thorough investigation. To reach that, again, he had to exclude everything to come to the conclusion. These are spirits, and spirits are we minus a physical body. The spirits gave him informations that he could research, that he could go and gather and be comfortable, be certain that indeed that spirit talking is the one that he's saying that he is. No, it's the same thing here when that spirit in Lilydale said who he was to the Sister Fox. They did the research and they found out that indeed there was that person who died, and all the information that he gave as well. And I think that is the only way that Kardec could come to that conclusion. I can't imagine any other way. Danielle, sorry. Danny?
And, no, she doesn't have a question.
Oh, okay.
Luis, if you read posthumous works, you'll find a lot of that information there of the beginnings of Kardec's research into spiritism.
Yeah. No, you have to think here that Kardec comes as a completely intellectual and skeptical of this whole thing. First, he needs to prove to himself, that he was in the right direction here, and then try to create this whole doctrine, not to create, but to codify this whole doctrine. And being an intellectual, being a scientist, he needs proofs. He needs to research, and he needs to rule out everything else.
Yeah. Yeah, they show this in the movie, right? The movie Kardec. They show the beginning, how he worked. It's not really kind of it's the movie. You have always to jump parts of it, otherwise it becomes too long. But they show it a little bit in the movie. Actually, there is a new series in Brazil, guys. You were watching Em Busca de Kardec.
What?
Prime Box. Please look and tell us if it's worth. Prime Box, Brazil.
Where's
Em Busca
this?
de Kardec. It's just started last week, last Saturday.
What streaming service?
Prime Box, Brazil.
Prime Box. What is Prime Box?
Yeah, I never heard it before, but look on the internet, you'll find it. It's, here we cannot find it yet. It's called Em Busca de Kardec. It's a French guy that did a series of documentaries. It's episode documentary of 30 minutes each part. It's a guy, a French guy that did it.
Thanks for
Started
the
in
hint.
France. Yeah, he starts in France and then he goes to Brazil to research it. I'm very curious to watch it.
Check it out.
Yeah. Okay.
We have time to finish one more?
We should leave it for next week. We're done. Yeah.
Oh, no. Okay.
You need to do 10? 10 is short. If you need
No,
to do it, do it.
I don't need to do anything. We have eternity ahead of us.
Yeah, it's just that we reached 1 hour on this study. Okay.
Anna is asking what is the name of the documentary?
Em Busca de Kardec.
Is it in Portuguese? I'm just curious.
Yes, in Portuguese. Well, the guy speaks in French in the beginning, subtitles, but then he talks a broken Portuguese, but yes.
Okay.
Ask your mother to watch Anna and tell us if she likes it.
I'll check it out and try to record it for you if I can, okay?
Yes.
Hey.
I looked on YouTube. Yes, Anna.
No, just say thank you. Thank you. I'll look it up. Yeah, thanks.
Yeah. All right.
Okay. Anyone wants to make the final prayer?
Volunteers.
I can do it.
Okay.
Oh, that's
Carol
okay.
raised her hand.
I will do it. That's good.
Okay, thanks.
Infinite Creator, good spirits who are with us, we are grateful to be together this evening to receive the teachings and the depths of studies. We are studying the Medium's book, and we know that we are learning a great deal. We start from the very basics to have an understanding of what is a spirit. Do spirits exist? Throughout this book, we'll go into more depth, and we are grateful for the codification of Allan Kardec. We are grateful this evening, especially to our spiritual benefactors, the good spirits, the mentors, the teachers and the guides and protectors, helping us each day to go forward on our journey, to increase our vibration, to increase our mental capacity and understanding, and to have a greater depth and openness of our hearts. We are truly grateful for what we are receiving and that we can study this in a community of like-minded people with open hearts. As we close this meeting tonight, we are grateful for everything we have received. We are grateful that we continue to go forward with greater courage, optimism, and faith and hope. We pray for those who are in need at this time, especially those who are going through difficult situations, who may be suffering a great deal, who need resolution, who need assistance, who need a greater help and healing within. We ask that our guides, protectors, and benefactors assist all of us in the physical world as well as the spiritual world. As we close this meeting now, we humbly ask for safety and protection, prosperity, peace, and understanding, and may we receive the love and light of Christ within our hearts and within our minds. May we go forth with optimism, with courage, and use the teachings that we have received to a greater capacity in serving others. We close now and ask for safety and protection of those on their way. May you be safe. May you return to the studies next week. We humbly ask now to be beacons of light. Go forth now in peace. So be it.